Good morning guys, F4H Rosso here with part 3 of the circuit experience tutorial at the Nurburgring Nordschleife. Today we're going to be completing the circuit, going right the way from the carousel all the way down to the final sector. Sorry this one's taken a little bit of a while to get out. A combination of the leaderboards being wiped just after I'd set all the times. I also set all the times, I didn't save any of the replays, and I got called into work a couple of days because where I am the snow has been insane. And a lot of people travel from outside the city to get into work, so I've been extremely pushed for time. But hopefully, now that we're going to complete the circuit, the video makes up for it. The same as usual, guys. We're going to see a replay from bumper cam with telemetry. We're going to see a replay from the replay cameras because they're cool as hell. And then we're going to watch from outside the car as I commentate over it and break it down. If you've not seen part 1 and part 2, both of those are available on my channel, and I'll put a link to those at the end of the video. And part 4 will come straight after this, so that's going to be uploaded today as well, as that's just the full lap. There'll be no commentary on that one, just the full unedited lap of the Nurburgring that I laid down the other day. So let's get into it. Let's tackle this carousel. So for a lot of people, the carousel might be the most iconic part of the Nürburgring, and it's also one of the most difficult. Even though it's a relatively short sector, it's really important in the carousel section to get everything perfectly. It can make or break a lap. And if you've seen my, I did a VW Beetle race in Group 3 on here, and if you don't get the carousel right, it can potentially ruin a race. There's one line through it, it's very narrow. You have to position the wheels in a way where they're both on the banking of the carousel, so you can't have your left-hand wheel on the flat. You can't have your right-hand wheel going over the lip of the carousel, because in either case you're gonna have a bad time. If you get that one wheel over the top, you're gonna go out of the top. It's gonna pop you out. If you get your wheel below the bottom of the gradient, you're gonna spin. So it's all about finding that balancing act. And getting the car in. There's some quite advanced techniques as well in this, involved in the carousel to kind of manipulate the way the car handles. So we'll approach the carousel itself. So I did a few runs of the carousel because I couldn't quite figure out what was the fastest way of approaching it. So you'll see we're approaching this one in 4th gear. You can hold it in 3rd. And you can also take the carousel in 3rd, but I think the best way is to take that extra shift to 4th. I think it probably gains you a mile an hour approaching the carousel, which doesn't sound like a lot, but is quite important. And 2nd, allows you to use one of those techniques in the carousel to kind of manipulate the way the car handles to take it as quickly as possible. So we're going to brake underneath the shadow of the tree, or just after the shadow of the tree. The entry to the carousel itself is really important. You don't want to be entering it too late because the gradient will naturally shoot the car out of the bottom. But you don't want to be entering it too early because you'll lose time. The initial gradient of the carousel is too shallow, so it can potentially shoot the car out of the top. So you've kind of got to pitch it in around this point, like you're aiming at the AMG signs. We're going to, as I say, do this in 2nd gear. At this point we are still hard on the brakes. You want to release the brake gradually as you enter the carousel, and you'll see at this point we are back on the power already. We're not even halfway through the carousel itself and we are already back on the power. This is what I mean by the kind of advanced technique that you want to employ in the carousel itself. If you are slightly resting on the power, maybe at half to 3/4 power all the way around the carousel, it will just settle the car down. You can kind of abuse, if you are using traction control, kind of abuse the traction control to kind of keep the car gripped up in the carousel itself. However, if you aren't using traction control, you are at an advantage in the carousel. The traction itself provokes some really odd behavior in the car through the carousel. So if you aren't using traction, you are at quite a big advantage on the carousel itself. I think probably by about a tenth or two. But keep on the power. You can see I'm just feeding that power on and on and on all the way around the carousel. Basically, as soon as you can see the exit, you want to be back hard on the power. The car will grip. You just have to have that trust in it. And it's a straight run to the line. But basically, as I say, that feeding of the power all the way around the carousel is what enables you to get such a good run out of it. It's not 100% necessary if you want to, beat the gold time itself. But if you want to, approach these top 10 times or improve your times on the Nürburgring in general, it's something that I would definitely recommend experimenting with. We want to hold third all the way to the line. A common theme with a lot of my videos is that we hold the gear. And then that's it. So the second and third sectors of today's video are probably my favourite sectors on the circuit. You have to be extremely fast, committed. They're really fast flowing sectors where a lot of time can be made and a lot of time can be lost also. So hopefully it's the former for us. Relatively straightforward run down to the first corner. Just make sure you keep it in nice and tight on this left hand side because that grass on the outside is very unforgiving. It will just basically drag you out and into the barrier. Up into fifth gear. And basically spy the entry into the next left-hander. We want to be approaching the right-hand side of the circuit where the curb is and hugging that curb on the right-hand side. Basically, as we clip the curb, we're on the brakes. We're going to basically bring the car down 2 gears really quickly. The reason that we're going to do that is the quick downshifts will help the nose really attack the corner without us having to do much work on the wheel. As soon as we crest the corner, we're straight back onto the power, as you can see already. We're already pointing at where we want to go, that right-hander. A little blip on the brakes through the right-hander to basically set us up for the right afterwards. And you'll notice basically in this sector itself, it's sequences of corners setting up for the corner after, rather than trying to maximise your run through a particular corner. You're always setting yourself up for the last corner in a sequence to try and maximise your run onto the little mini straights in between. Plenty of curb available here, so use it and get yourself the best run possible into this right-hander. You need to be on the brakes nice and early. Round about here, I actually hit the brakes too late here, and you'll see we go sailing past the apex. Luckily on that corner it's not too bad. It probably lost us about a tenth there, and on this run actually a tenth was the difference between me being in second and me being in first. So yeah, it's the ideal line on that one is to hug the inside, nice early on the power, and you gain time all the way down this hill and the run to the next sequence of corners. So a little bit of a mistake there, but we're okay. A little lift here. You'll see on the telemetry we're already back on the power. We've already taken our little lift. Just to get the nose in and position the car, as I said, in that first sector. It very much applies for this sector too. The aim of the first right and left on this is just to position ourselves for the last right. So all this time I'm thinking about where the last apex is rather than where I am currently on the circuit, just keeping the car nice and tightly in to the corners themselves, trying to scrub off as little speed as possible. And you can already see I'm preparing myself for that last right-hander. That's where I want to be. That curb on the inside is what we're going to attack. That's what's going to gain us our time. That's what's going to maximise our speed down the hill for the next corner. So we basically clunk into that curb on the right-hand side. We're going to use a bit of the dirt on the outside too. You get away with it just here, as you can see. And as you hit the end of the curb, brake hard. Difficult corner this. It's uphill, it's unsighted, the exit is blind. On the exit there's a little bit of curb, so it's tempting to try and push that limit to the maximum, but if you go over that curb then you go for a little run over the grass on the inside. It's a very difficult corner. It's probably the most difficult corner on this sector, one of the most surprisingly difficult on the circuit, and also one where you make up the most time by being brave. So on the brakes, as you hit the end of the curb, keep it in fourth gear, and you can see as we're cresting the hill we're already feeding the power back on. Look for that exit. It is there. You've just got to trust that you're gonna hit the exit perfectly, as we do here. Very little room for error, but we just about got that perfect. We're already on the power. Relatively self-explanatory left-hander, just a short shift down into third gear and keep the car tight. We want to maximise the run down into the next corner. It's very tempting on this corner to brake late to try and maximise your time, but honestly you want to be braking earlier and just getting the car in and maximising your run out of the corner itself. I guess a rule of thumb for corners and attacking corners, you know, with like a kind of 90-degree radius like this, is if the straight is longer that you've just come from than it is after, you want to be maximising the corner. If the straight is longer after the corner, you want to be maximising the straight. So in this case, it's a tiny little run from the corner to the corner. So we're going to brake early, get on the power early, and maximise the straight. It's kind of compounded as well by the fact that this straight is a tiny little bit uphill. So we want to be on the power as early as we can be. Again, at the end of the curb, nice and hard on the brakes to set the car up for this right-hander. Keep the car in nice and tight. And basically, as soon as you are almost in line with the curb on the outside, you want to be back on the power. Use the curb on the outside if you have to, but it's not 100% necessary. You can just kind of rest on the gradient of the curb itself and the car will stay. So we're on to the second of the two fast sectors. A bit more straightforward, this one. Nice and late on the brakes into the first left-hander, and use plenty of the glass, plenty of the grass on the inside to set yourself up for the exit. You want to be basically using a little bit of this curb on the right-hand side as well, just the straightest run possible down the hill. Essentially, the path of least resistance. Up through the gears as normal. You can hold it in fourth down here, but to be honest, fifth gear is ever so slightly faster because you're going downhill. As you crest, ideally this is where you should be on the brakes. But you can see the front end is in the air. So basically, as soon as you land, straight on the brakes, and a nice early apex straight back on the power. You can tackle this double right-hander in a few different ways, but I found probably the fastest is to take the apex of the first of the right-handers, ignore the second, just get on the power, let the car drift out naturally, carry as much speed as possible, because the car will take the final left-hander flat as long as you've got the line kind of right. You don't want to be out too far. You'll see I go right the way out to the outside of the track, but take an ever so slight dip inside before I correct the car back to the left. It's just to you know, maximise the run through the left-hander itself and make sure that I don't run wide. Use all of the circuit. We want a nice early shift up into fifth gear here because we're going to be going downhill, so we don't want to be riding the car out into insane revs, because we'll just be wasting power and wasting gears. So nice early shift to fifth as we crest the hill. Use that beautiful fifth gear all the way down the hill. Set yourself up for the third of the three quick corners. Just make sure that you take a nice tight line through the first two. You don't want to be going over the top through the first two. It's all nice and easily flat, but you can find one mistake will compound the mistake all the way through the three corners themselves, because they come at you so quickly. So just be aware of that. As we hit the third apex, we're going to take a shift into sixth. It's an early shift, but because we're carrying so much speed, the car can handle it. And you carry a bit more speed down to the actual braking point itself. So you see we're in sixth already, you know, approaching 160 mile an hour, which is where we want to be coming into the braking zone. So we've gone past the curb on the left-hand side, and you'll see there's a little patch of grass, not glass this time, just on the left-hand side and on the right as well. And a little cue for where you want to be braking as well, as you can see the little patch of tarmac on the right-hand side. Just after that, we're on the brakes hard and down 2 gears, abusing that mechanic again of the quick shifts down, pitching the car into where we want to be. So you'll see the car takes a big dive inside. Again, the nice quick downshifts really help the car to rotate. Over to the right hand side, to maximise your run through the final corner, we want a quick downshift here into third gear. Nice and early on the power to maximise your run down to the finish itself. Use plenty of that curb on the right hand side. So the hard work's almost over. This is really the last real, sector of the circuit itself before the huge straight. It gets you off to a pretty horrible start, this one, because you're in second gear, but as soon as you launch, you're on the red line. So you want to be shifting immediately up into third as you start the actual test itself. See just there. nice and early on the brakes on this one. So the mini carousel is actually surprisingly difficult in this game. In a lot of games, you just kind of, you know, it's whatever, it's just there, kind of, a bit of scenery. But on GT, it seems to be a lot more difficult to tackle. Same kind of rules apply as with the main carousel, apart from you really want to be out of the bottom of this one, so nice and tight to the apex, and just kind of bump into the carousel, kind of, you know, abuse the fact that it's on a gradient just to keep the car in tight. Obviously pop out at the top at the end, as you can see we're doing right now. We're already on the power for a nice run up the hill. Fourth gear. A nice dab of brake. Avoid that curb on the inside. It launches the car. It's absolutely horrible. So avoid that curb. You ideally want to be touching the white line, but nothing more. Get the car out to the right. At this point, we're going to take a little lift, but we're going to switch up into fifth gear at the same time. If you take a little lift and stay in fourth, the car will run wide. Whereas if you take a little lift and scrub the speed off, that changing gear will accomplish, and get on the power, it works out perfectly. Hold fifth to the line for the best run. So there's not a huge deal to say for this sector, so I'm just going to let the video run for a second. This is the only respite the Nürburgring will give you, so enjoy it. Keep that right finger or right foot fully pressed down on your pedal or trigger, and just try and take the path of least resistance down into the final corners. Set your car up from here. So basically we're pointed already at where we want to be. We've not lifted. Don't lift. You don't have to. Just keep the line nice and tight. We're looking for a patch of grass on the right hand side that we'll see in a moment. And there it is. Where we're going to be braking hard and using this little patch of grass again on the inside for our braking point. You can brake, but also turn, which I guess well, I've never driven this track, I've never driven this car, so I don't know if that's realistic or not, but it's what we're going to do here. So nice and hard on the brakes, straighten the car out, and you're aiming for that right hand apex just there. Plenty of curb on that right hand side as well. Nice and early on the power, the car will stick and spy that entry into the last corner. Could be a bit of a hairy one, this one, because if you take an early turn in, you're heading straight into that wall. If you take a late turn in, you're going out into the grass, into no man's land, and you've completely wrecked your run, not only for the end of this lap, but at the start of the next one. Nice little bit of curb there on the outside that you can use for your run to the line and to complete the lap. So that's the end of part 3, guys, and the end of our breakdown of the sectors of the Nürburgring. I really hope you've enjoyed it and you've found it helpful. It's been fantastic to see people on forums, on the videos themselves, commenting on how they're enjoying them and how they're they're finding them helpful. That's absolutely fantastic. And if you've got any success stories, feel free to share them with me. I'm readily available on forums like GT Planet, on my YouTube videos themselves. I usually respond to pretty much all the comments on there. So let me know if they've helped. Let me know if they've helped you get gold medals, if they've helped you shave seconds off your times. I love to hear about it. Sorry the video was a bit long today. I actually thought that the circuit was split into 9 sectors rather than 11, so a bit of an extended cut today, but hopefully it wasn't too laborious to get through and you enjoyed it. Next up is the circuit challenge, the 1 lap challenge. That will follow straight after this video, so as soon as I've done this commentary I'll be editing that together and uploading that today too. So 2 videos for the price of 1 today. Once again guys, thank you ever so much for watching. We are up now to, I think it's 93 subscribers, so 7 off that magical 100. We might actually get there before Christmas. I didn't think it was going to happen, but maybe we'll get up to 100 before Christmas. That will be absolutely amazing. Thanks guys, I've been F4H Rosso, and I'll see you on the 1 lap challenge.